abstract forms, shapes that Dale portrays with these luminous washes that he does. So, Dale, it's all yours now.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wanted to kind of follow up on what you were saying about abstraction versus representational stuff that I do. And that's kind of what this demo will be about, is that thing.
Luminous washes that he does.
I'm hearing some back.
So am I.
Dale, it's all yours.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I was getting some backwash from some. Yeah, I wanted to kind of follow up on what you were saying about abstraction versus representational stuff that I do. And that's kind of what.
Someone's mic is still open.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be able to not hear anybody. So, okay. Sounds good. So yeah, we were talking, Tana was talking about the way I express my my landscapes, and it is a blend between abstraction and representation. It's hard to say realism when who knows what realism really is. So I use the word representation to represent something that may look more objective and something that looks more abstract, which is more inventive shapes. So lately, the last few years, I've been calling my workshops shape-shifting, because that's all we're doing as painters. We're shifting shapes around, inventing shapes, moving things here, moving things there to lock in a design. So whether I'm talking about color shapes or line shapes or value shapes or whatever I'm talking about, it's important to realize they're all just locked in shapes, whether I'm using line or value or color, texture, whatever. So we want to think of I try to think of my painting, my 22 by 30 inch shape picture as my biggest shape. From there, I deconstruct it into smaller shapes to create whatever design that comes about. So, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I've got a little slideshow to show you that it's only like 4 or 5 slides because I started my demonstration painting already because of the drawing process I have at the very beginning, which is wetting the paper. So I photographed a couple steps so you can see exactly where I was going before I start painting today. So that would be my my next step would be to do that. So right now I'm just going to go ahead.
No, I don't need light. I like it this way.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, let's keep it muted so I don't get confused here. So I'm going to try my share screen, see if I can get to my tabletop or my my desktop here and show my slideshow. So hang on, see what I can do. Here we go. Okay, so I call this one Shape Shifting the Coast in Watercolor, and it's this painting that I'm going to be doing. And this is what you're seeing on the screen is one of my completed paintings, and I'm going to show you about 3 or 4 paintings that kind of give you the flavor of where I'm going today. So this is one that I did a couple of years ago. I don't know exactly when, but it's a smaller, like half sheet or less painting. And then this is one I did this year, which let me go back to that one. This one here is a blend. It's a blend of, you can see what's going on here. You can see Point Lobos in the distance and the rocks, but then the foreground where we had a lot of activity on the beach, rocks and rubble and tide pools and things like that. I use that for the inventive process and try to blend the 2 ideas together. And so here's another one of the coastal area. I like to combine both the landscape and the seascape together because it makes for me more interesting shapes. So that's where I've gone with this one, using the idea of driftwood that's washed back up out of the ocean onto the shore, combinations of rocks and shapes and water, tide pools, distant fog, all to create some kind of a blend between the two ideas. Here's a vertical looking down into the landscape, into this beach area. So I used the vertical and used extreme angles to create that sense of verticality, or a sense of flying almost. You have no foreground, so you feel like you're just floating out into the air here. So this is the painting, the sketch for the painting that I'm going to be doing today. So you can see how I use line to connect to other lines. So probably every line here is pretty much connected either physically or visually. You have some connection with each other. So like John Muir said, everything in the universe is connected to every other thing in the universe. So same goes for a painting. This is my universe, and I try to knit it all together into one functioning unit with various parts. So what I just used a sketch paper for this, and my micron pens, which you can get them at just about any art store. I use a 08, a 05, a double 05, and so various widths and tips for my drawing. But I don't use the pencil very much for drawing. I just like to overlay line on top of line until I get what I want. And if the sketch isn't quite going where I want it to go, I just flip the page and work on another sketch. And sometimes you'll find my sketchbook with just a few scribbles in it. Sometimes you'll see a full-fledged drawing. So these are all notes to myself for my painting, and for my knowledge for my next painting maybe. And so here we go. I've stapled down my 22 by 30 inch Arches 300-pound rough. I stapled it down with my JT21 stapler, and then I drew on dry paper the lines, that construction lines that you saw in my sketch, or some of the construction lines in the sketch. So as the painting goes from the initial sketch to this drawing to the next, there's always a change, a transition. So I'm not always following the original design completely, but reacting to everything that comes before. So it's kind of like history, we react to what's come before, events in our lives that have come before, and that's the way the painting speaks to us. It lets us know what's happened and what we can do to go from here. So let's see if I can get out of this one. Up in there, I don't know. Let's see. Stuck on that one. Just a second there. There we go. So then after, now it wants to go. Let's see if I can find it back again. There we go. Okay. So on this one here, what I've done, you saw the drawing. So now what we're looking at is the painting after I've put my initial washes down. So what I did was I used my 3-inch brush and I wet the entire surface fairly liberally, not leaving too much in the way of puddles on it. I sweep most of the water off and just let it soak in, so I get an even sheen to the paper and not a lot of puddling. And then I lay in what I call my lightest lights, just the general outlay of the painting in the lighter values. And from here, I let it dry until it feels dry to the back of the hand. That's why I did this ahead of time, so that we wouldn't sit here and watch paint dry on a computer. So what I'm ready to do now is go ahead and go into my painting, and so I'm going to show you my desktop next. I hope, if I do this right. Okay, let me get out of this. Okay. All right. Let's go. See if I can get full screen here. Where do we get full screen on here? There we go, found it. Okay, back in business here. So I'm going to go to my camera and hopefully you can see my palette. I'm not sure if you can see everything on the screen, but let me see if I, that right. Oh boy, we're back out of it here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just go ahead and start. I hope everybody can see what's going on the screen here. I've got something going on wrong here. I'm stuck in something here.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to full screen now.
I think you've got it now.
Is it full screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll just go ahead and start then. For me, I can see my desktop, so I was wondering what I've got going there. Thank you. Okay, so so you can see what I was about on this painting. It's showing up on my monitor a little more yellow than I actually painted it, but hopefully you'll get the idea of what I've done here. You can see my high horizon here, and then you can faintly see my drawing going along through here like this. My hillside coming down. I started purposely right at the corner here and brought it down almost to the middle. So what that does, it brings this whole hillside here into my face, close to me as a viewer. So you can see it in the sketch a little bit where I've got it going all the way along here from the very corner of my design, all the way almost to the midpoint, about a third of the way, actually, a little over a third of the way. So those are some of the things that I talked about when I talked about shape shifting, about how do I want this shape to come toward me? How do I want this distant headland to come into the distance, maybe a mile or so away? So all of the ways I place these shapes is very important to the process of painting. Now I had used this 2-inch brush for some of my big major shapes on this, and it's one of my favorite brushes. It's does a lot of my work. It covers a lot of acreage. And I have this 2-inch brush, which is another one of my major brushes that I use. It's a 2-inch Winsor Newton 965. Robert Simmons makes one very similar to that. Then I have an 1.5-inch brush here, and then a I think this is a 1-inch brush here. So these are the brushes that work for me. I do have rounds. I have a few rounds here and there, but mainly I work with these flat brushes. Let me see if I can find my rounds here somewhere. So I use like a number 8 round, like this, and then for some of my smaller shapes, I'll use a number 3 round, which is very small. So the number 3 round would look like this, and it's just a Scepter Gold, I think. And this one is something called a Holbein Gold, and they're all synthetic brushes. So no sables. So I start with the big brushes. I start on dry paper. I'll work with my 2-inch brush here and work up a puddle. Spray these down again so they stay wet. And mix up a puddle of cobalt blue right now. That's my mainstay blue colors. I use cobalt blue a lot. I use French ultramarine and phthalo blue green shade. Those are my 3 go-to blues. So let's lock in this distant headland back here that you'd find at the ocean, seascape. Yeah, so we have this spit of land that just works its way out into the composition like this. So here we have the cobalt blue by itself. And I'll introduce a little more color into it like this, just charging a little bit more of the same value to make the value deeper, using the same color. Now what I'm going to do is gray that down slightly with, I'll use a neutral tint by Holbein. Most of my other colors are all Daniel Smith colors, but I do use Holbein for the neutral tint because I just like the cooler cast it has rather than the more warm neutral of Daniel Smith. That's the only reason I use a different brand of that. So there we have the distant headland. I'm going to also introduce just a tiny bit of quinacridone burnt orange, which I use in place of burnt sienna. Just wash that in just a little bit here. Like so. Now it'd be a good time to work right down into the seascape itself. And just touch it together with the headland like this and move it out this way. I'm going to use some phthalo blue green shade in the water here with a little neutral tint just to green it up. The phthalo blue green shade is just a little greener than the other blues. And here I'm just going to enter a little bit of gold in there and just green that seascape up with this a little bit. Now I'm going to make the horizon fairly faint out here so that the water just kind of merges with the horizon, just merges with the sky a little bit there. One thing I can do to make this edge appear softer, appear more like it's maybe into the mist a little bit, is what I can do is take some more cobalt blue, and I'll take a bit of neutral tint again. And what I'm going to do is just wash it across the top like this and let it kind of drift into the headland here, and just let it soften the whole thing up a little bit like this. And that way, that puts it into the fog a little bit. And it also sets it back into the distance. Now, I'm thinking I need to add a little bit more value to this headline here. So I'm going to do that with my neutral tint and cobalt blue. Just keep darkening that just a little bit so it stands out against the sky. I'm taking my big 3-inch brush and washing it down on this next cliff that I have here. I don't mind that the distant hill is bleeding in a little bit because we're going to deepen this value of this cliff that I'm working on right now. So it doesn't really matter that much. So back into the cobalt blue with a little bit of quin red. Quin red is my go-to red. It's very transparent, very powerful. So I have to be very careful when I use it. So some of the major work is done with these big shapes. The big shapes provide our foundation for the painting. So I spend a lot of time building from the foundation up. And I don't mean bottom up this way, but up this way. Now I'm going to add some burnt orange in this, show some of the earth tones. I've got a little cave or tunnel there that I'm trying to save out. So I'm painting around this area that I've drawn in here. And the color here being a little fanciful, using a little bit of violet in this wash. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the shape of this. It's all kind of connecting together is what I look for, are these little connections. You notice how I let those two areas connect, this area connects. So I'm still looking for ways to work the painting together. So I have this outline rock shape drawn in here that I want to walk into the design. Put a violet in there, a little bit of burnt orange. So that kind of repeats what's going on in the painting itself, in the major part of the painting. Kind of round off these bottom edges to give it a sense of we're looking down on it more than straight across. here we're looking out towards the horizon, so things are straight across, but down here, what we look at is the curvature of the base of some of these shapes. Now, while this is still wet, I can do some actual drawing into the painting. And I'll use some of the same colors I've used before, which is some of the burnt orange and things like that. So I can draw some of these angles and shapes and lines that I indicated in my sketch. You can see in my sketch, it's not showing up very well, but some of these lines I want to introduce into this wet wash while I'm still able to do that. I'm following some of the lines that I've drawn at the very beginning of my painting, or started painting that. So here I'm just kind of indicating the sea stain, the rock that we find along the shoreline's edge there. So I'm mixing up a little puddle of phthalo blue green shade. And I'm going to wash that into the water here. I'm not going to keep it this vibrant, but I'm going to start with this and let some of the rock shapes drift in. Then I'll add a little something to mute it down a little bit of violet, a little bit of burnt orange. So we want to catch some of that. So I started with the phthalo blue, then I added a little bit puddle of violet I had from the cobalt blue and red, and then I've added some burnt orange to get this kind of muted blue-green here. So notice how I touched the edge of the rock shape so it starts to settle into the water and create reflections. And the color here reflects down into the water. I have to do some of this stuff while things are still wet, so I've developed a practice of trying to get these big shapes in first. So here I'm going to keep it a little bit more light value because I'm going to use some of these as surf lines later. So I'm just going to wash from a deeper value to a lighter value here. Drop it there. I'm going to do that. I think I got to drop it there that I'm not too fond of. That's good. So I step back a little bit once in a while, check it out, see what's going on there. My screen is showing it really, really bright. I don't know if it's quite that bright in what you're seeing, but it's actually a much more muted image than what I see there. Now I'm checking to make sure some of this is fairly dry. What I can start working on now is this big mass here on the left, which is more of a muted yellow and touches of burnt orange, and it shows yellow on my monitor, but it's actually more of a reddish tone right through there. I'm mixing up a puddle of twin burnt orange. It's twin gold. I'll add just a little bit of cobalt blue to that to create kind of a greenish tone, gold green. So I'm pre-mixing that right there on my palette. Notice how I'm using the side of my brush so I don't get quite a hard edge everywhere. So I went with a flat shape, you know, the end of my brush, and then I drug it sideways across there so that I can get that kind of a freedom of a nice shape coming down there. So we warm up the picture as we come forward. And it might not be a bad idea to add a little bit of cool in this warm area. So I'm gonna block in some, wash in some cobalt blue into the green, cool it off just a little bit like that. And I could mute it with a little bit of neutral tint. Neutral tint is basically just neutral color. It's just gray. Is the best way to put it now. And so we get these shapes going here. There's a little bit of light here that's been caught by light here. So thinking with, you know, with the seascape, we're going to get partial clarity of sunlight and shadow and areas of fog and mist. So you never know what you're going to get when you go to the coast. I was just there last week and I went from 90-degree weather here to Pescadero Point to 68-degree weather, which was felt like winter to me. So pretty nice on the coast, but misty cold, and once in a while we get the sun, but not very often. Yeah, I just mixed a little violet into the green, and you can see what happens if it merges in and creates kind of a more of a neutral than anything like that. I'll try my 1.5 inch brush here and add some more earth tone to some of this close-up stuff. think I can get away with putting some color in here without it bleeding. So I'm going to give it a try with a smaller brush. And I'm thinking, seeing that as a kind of a light colored beach area, which I might indicate as a yellow ochre with a little light on a beach back here. Fill that space in. Well, really, that just gives us some really nice distance back through here. Wondering if I can adjust this color better. I don't know as we're getting, but there it goes. Turn it down a little bit. Color intensity. I'm going to turn it down to where about I think it should be, right about there. That looks better to me. That's closer to what we're seeing, what I'm seeing. Okay, what I'm going to start doing is working down into this area where I have this little focus of this little hole in the water, hole in the rock. On my Wiggly Hole number 8 sable here.
Dale, you lost your full screen on your workspace there. As you-
Okay, let's see.
I still have full screen.
So do I.
So do I. I'm good.
I'm
good.
Ralph is the only one. Don't mess with it.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm the outlier.
Okay,
Just cut off a little bit on either side.
I wonder if I left it on advanced or what here. Is that any better?
That's it. Thank you.
So I'm just using a heavier amount of some of these earth tones, mainly quinburnt orange, quinacridine burnt orange. I'm going to add just a little bit of a neutral tint to that, just give it a real dark. But not really focus frames that area. So I'm going to let that dry before I move on. After I move on to something else. I can feel it's bubbling up here. I'm not petting my painting. I'm just checking to see how dry things are. And usually the back of the hand is the best for me. So I'm just looking for places where I can start to work on the painting a little bit. And think I can work right in here. That still seems to be an area that would work for me. So I'll work with that until, if I can't get it to dry, I'll put you on mute and dry my painting just a little bit. But I like to work without having to use a hairdryer if I can. It's a little light back in there, just a little bit. Just get into it with my paper towel and bring the light back in. I'm going to take my little brush here and soften some of these edges out. And now that this underlayer is dry, I'm going to work with another pattern on top. And that's how I indicate the surf line, not by adding lights so much, although you can do it that way. I like to let the underlayer become the surf line. So by painting another layer of value on here, I can get that to happen. So I move that water right up to the edge of the mountain, the cliff here, so that we get a feeling of looking straight down into that water. Up here, I'm going to just lay some very light washes out here. We don't want the sea to be that dark in the distance where there's more light on it. But where we're looking down on it, then we can have a little bit more of the depth of the water. One thing I found out about painting water, especially ocean water, it changes every 2 seconds. So you just have to keep an idea in mind what you want. That's getting pretty dry there. Seems like that's the life of a watercolor. It's either too wet or too dry all the time. So you just have to deal with it. You just kind of adjust to that. A little bit more green out here. Add a little gold in there. Create that green in that pale green orange. So now what I'm doing is just picking colors out of my puddle. It's almost difficult for me to, give you any real definite color thing. All I can say is warm and cool, dark and light, and try to give you as many mixes as I can, but at this stage, not so easy all the time. But I'm going to mix up a puddle of cobalt blue with this, a tiny bit of twin red, and follow up with this violet wash that I have on this mountain shape here, this cliffside shape. Now what I'm doing is kind of feel the contours of these cliffs as you come down. So just feeling the contour of that landscape, rockscape, whatever you want to call it. Kind of join the water with the rock and stone and make things work. So if you can follow my finger, you can see how there's a kind of a curvilinear shape here that feeds around here like this and comes around like this and then hooks back, and hopefully it give you some sense of why this hole is here. That way you can see through to that. So that's kind of the whole point of that part of the process there. So like I said at the beginning, everything is linked to every other thing. So that's what I try to do, is find ways to keep the eye interested, not jump from one thing to another too much. I'm just kind of dry brushing.
Dale,
Yeah.
are you using burnt sienna or quin orange for the neutral?
Oh, that's right. It's Quin burnt orange is what I've been using with neutral tint, or mixing it with French ultramarine or cobalt blue. So I don't use burnt sienna at all. So it's always, my go-to is Quin burnt orange. It's more transparent. It's not a mineral. It's a synthetic. So it's very transparent color. Although burnt sienna is a beautiful color, I just find it handier to use that, the Quin burnt orange. Yeah, I've been ignoring this big old rock shape here, that I'm waiting for some of these edges to dry. So that's, I have this big top of a rock that we can't see the bottom of right in my foreground. So I'm waiting on that. Put a little shadow on the side of this rock here. Thinking about fleeting sun coming in from the west here. So here we're going to put some vegetation on this slope coming down. And it's just a mixture of what's here, which is French ultramarine, and there's a little bit of phthalo blue, a little bit of neutral in there. So it's just kind of a real cool blue, cool dark blue that I'm putting in here. I don't want the green shrubbery to be too strong. I don't want it very bright green in the distance at all. Let me just let that settle and see what happens with that.
Dale, you dropped a spot in the water there.
See that? Yeah, thanks. My painting was talking to me, telling me I dropped a spot in the water there.
So Dale, what are you making your greens again with? Quin gold and some kind of blue?
Yeah, for these greens, which are fairly muted greens, they were the quin gold and cobalt blue. Now these greens back here, I use more of the phthalo blue green shade with a little neutral tint and maybe a little bit of cobalt blue, but it's very difficult for me to give you exact things because you know, I just sometimes just taking things I find in my puddles and work with those. So right now, I think what I'm going to do for about 5 minutes is put myself on mute if I can find it here. What I'm going to do is use the hair dryer.
And while Dale's on mute, if you'd like to just comment on what you're seeing Dale do unmute yourself briefly and comment. We'll learn from this. What do you see here?
I love his predominant blues with the offset of the neutrals. It gives you a nice, I don't know, idyllic, passive, quiet scene.
Others, what are you seeing him do that you're learning from?
I love the simplicity of his palette.
I'm kind of interested in what that large brush is that's like a paintbrush, but what are the bristles? They look softer than a regular paintbrush.
Yeah, I was watching that too. What he's able to do with the, of course, he's got a full sheet here, but these big paint brushes, he's not niggling little details. He's making bold strokes, but big. I'm going to have to learn how to do that. It's really fascinating to watch him use big brushes.
But it doesn't look like regular paintbrush, you know, hard bristles. It looks softer than that.
It's I have one. It's a Sky Flow by Robert Simmons, number 3. And it's very soft bristles. The bristles are white.
So it's an art store brush?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
A 3-inch brush.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
They used to have them at University Art. I don't know if they still do.
I don't know. Mine's ancient, so I've had it for a really long time.
Hey, I'm back.
Yeah, we've been chatting about what you're doing here. Thank you for showing us all this stuff.
Oh, no problem. I heard something about brushes. What was the question? Somebody had a question about brushes.
What's that 3-inch large brush you're using again?
Oh yeah, that's a Robert Simmons Skyflow. I found it either on Dick Blick or on Cheap Joe's or one of those places. You know, they're expensive. You know, they're like $70-some now. They used to be $30-40 when I first was buying them, but they're very expensive brush. So make sure that's something you're interested in before you spend that kind of money. So
I better take better care of the one I've got.
yeah, this one's lasted me quite a while. So yeah, they work out it's a pretty nice brush, especially for getting in the big shapes. And you can even use the corner of it or the edge of it for certain things, but it's pretty important to have big broad brushes for the way I paint, you know, my broad brush way of painting. So yeah. So now what I'm going to do, now that this is dry, I can go in here and be a little bit more specific for some of these shades. So I'm going to start to be a little more detailed, I guess is the word. But the detail comes after you get big shapes. Because if I don't get those big shapes just right, I'm having trouble keeping my painting in unified design. Because then I'm just jumping from one thing to another. So I'm trying to find ways to create continuity. So the colors, I'm just working the same old colors, the Quinburn orange. Sometimes I throw in some neutral tint if I need it to neutralize the gray colors down. Now these blue dots I'm putting in there right now, I don't see that you can see that, but there's a cobalt blue in there showing up as black on the screen. I spent a lot of time joining these shapes together. Well, this one that we've been waiting for, we should get that started. And that's just a big rock shape coming up there in the foreground. I wanted to get the effect of looking right at the edge of the cliff, looking down, and I sees the tops of some of these rocks and cliffs.
Is that neutral tint you're with now?
Yeah, that's mostly neutral tint, and there's some quin burnt orange in there. So I just wanted to get that fairly neutral, but dark enough that it stands away from the water. Now, this shows a lot darker on my monitor than it actually is. So some of these areas are showing black or dark, and they're really not quite that dark. You can still see the paper coming through. But I just wanted to make that mention.
May I ask, Dale, who influenced your style of watercolor painting?
Oh, gosh. Well, I guess the very first influence was just looking at a film by Rex Brandt of a demo painting in high school, and then getting his book Winning Ways with Watercolor. So that's how I got started. Looking at Rex Brandt. I don't know if everybody knows who he is anymore, but he was one of the California watercolorists. And then I went to college. I was actually going to be a forestry major. I was a forestry major in junior college. And then I took a watercolor course from as an elective from Dan Peterson in Modesto, California. And the rest is history. Now I changed my major and concentrated on watercolor at San Jose State. And I got stuck making my living doing this since 1985. So that's kind of my influence there. Also, design-wise, I like to look at Wayne Thiebaud's work, Maynard Dixon, who was a great Southwest painter, and Gregory Kondo's work. All these people have some influence on me, I guess.
The reason why I asked your painting that you're working on right now made me think of the artist Francis Lee Jacques, I think is the last name.
Never heard of that person.
Turn of the century artist, and he did American Wildlife, and his rocks, I've always loved them, but your style there reminds me of his. It was really, and his were all watercolor as well.
No, I don't know who that is. So.
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch the color of drying grasses that are partially green, partially dried out here. So I'm washing in, charging in some yellow ochre into my cooler green washes here to warm them up a little bit. Yellow ochre is a little thicker than some of the other yellows, so it kind of hangs in there nicely. That's one of my favorite go-to colors to start with. When I start my paintings, I usually tint the paper with yellow ochre to warm everything up. So I'm going to blend some of these edges together so like it's all one thing. Yeah. I'm just basically using a wet brush here to blur some of these edges, sharp edges. So mainly cobalt blue here, a little bit of phthalo blue, green shade, a touch of queen gold in here for some of these. I'm trying to keep the green fairly muted on these hillsides as I come down. Yeah. Darker than these, and a little greener, a little warmer than these vegetation there. I'm trying to blend these shapes that I've made into some kind of unit that hold together and give a sense of a hillside. Put some cobalt blue into that. Well, those values should go from dark to light on the monitor here. I hope it shows better on yours. Throw in some cobalt blue into that.
Dale, what do you use for your purples or violets?
Well, I just mix my blue and my quin red. So I mix all blue with a red, or with the quin red, or use French ultramarine and the quin red, or some other blue that I have. Quin red is a pretty powerful transparent red, so I found it useful. I used to put have the permanent alizarin crimson on my list, but it's so close to quin red that I just found myself not using it very much. So I've just stuck with the quin red. The permanent alizarin with Daniel Smith, all it is quin red and anthraquinoid red. So it wasn't much. A little cooler, a little darker, but I can do that with a blue. So I said, no, I'll just take it off my list. Found I just wasn't using it that much. So. What I'm doing now is just a bunch of little dots and dashes to represent vegetation and things coming down that hill, that cliffside there. I'm just always fascinated with these escarpments you find there in Big Sur. It's just amazing. And it gets you right in the gut. It's a little bit more on that distant headland there, just to bring it up a little bit in value. And so what I'm doing is through that process here is layering, bringing up layers as the thing goes to give it a little more depth and value and so forth. Kind of leave a little bit of light in here to catch the light, there's light being caught along this edge here. And then in some places over here, I want to repeat the light that I find on the edge of the mountain now.
It seems like now you're doing a little more of the abstraction, just based on knowledge of
what
Well-
is here and what you've seen.
Yeah, I'm blending abstraction with representation here. So I'm just using the hillside as a way to abstract and design my way down through the painting. So this whole area gives me a chance to do that quite readily. So
And to know the topography and seen it up close and visited and so on and so forth, it has to help that process.
yep, a lot of my my scenes are in my head these days. I don't do as much outdoor painting as I used to. Because I like to abstract scenes more. And when I'm on location, I find myself, following the subject more than being inventive. So that's one of the reasons that I guess I haven't painted outside a lot. So lately.
But it just seems like more of a creative process. I mean, you really.
But yeah, abstract. All painting is abstract, but when you take it beyond the objective, it becomes really personal and it becomes challenging. I'm challenging myself on each one of these paintings that I produce like this. So it's for me, it's my favorite way of painting is to sometimes just let color happen and then lay it down and then try to find something in it shape wise or message wise or subject wise that appeals to me. Now this one I had a design in mind, so I'm using that design as my starting point, and I've really taken off from that. So it's much different than it was originally. So the sketch is only there to give you in my case, give me a starting gauge, and then from there, who knows what it's going to take. I've had seascapes turn into Sierra paintings before. That's what we say when we look at painting, do some of the work, give us some ideas and things like that. That's almost pure neutral tint there. That is a real dark right there. So I'm trying to get that feel of looking through to the other side there. But I guess this is a part of the process where I quiet down and I'm not talking quite so much because I'm spending time looking for shape and design and finishing touches, things like that. And I step back and look at it at this point and look for other things to do. I notice that this is still pretty moist and I need to develop this area where my hand is just a bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can mute you first. I'm going to do some drawing with a hair dryer.
So while he's muted, anybody else, something you're seeing there, I think he's created this secret beach you can't quite see. It makes it extremely interesting. What are you guys seeing?
Well, Ralph, I'm seeing the warmth of the closest cliffs as because of the use of color and the lightness. as, as being so much closer, that depth.
I'm
Others?
loving the cave. I think the cave area is just gorgeous. And I sent Dale a chat message, but I guess he didn't see it. I wanted to know what angle his paper was at on his table.
Yeah, he's not watching chat, I don't think. I think the cave is the center of interest, so he's got the darkest dark and some lights close by.
Exactly. But what's the angle of his paper?
I think I can answer that based on the workshop I did with him. He doesn't angle it a lot, maybe a shoebox height or a little bit less.
30 degrees usually, not much.
Okay.
Anybody else, what are you seeing here that has impressed you?
I think he's added a ton of interest in that closer mountain. Before, I was a little bit distracted by the darker area in the water. And his intuition about connecting shapes is really impressive for me.
I'm impressed as I'm watching. We're seeing a master at work. This is so amazing.
Okay, I heard that.
All right, Dale.
His colors just cry out California coast to me, or anywhere on the Pacific coast. Just the colors are so vibrant and so classic of the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, Dale, you're back, and we've got somewhere around 12 minutes, more or less.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Hurry up and finish. Poor guy.
So I'm going to add some more rock outcroppings out here in the water now. The quick brush strokes help with this, some of these edges. If you move your brush faster, you get a more of a scumbled edge. So that helps with making interesting transitions from one shape to another out there. I can do the same like right in here. Just come in here and loosen up some of these edges. Now this is what I originally wanted to get some drawing going on here, so I can give it some volume, a light and shade. That'll give it a sense of having volume rather than just a flat shape. That's just a wallop of cobalt blue right in there on top of the burnt orange. So that brings it really quite forward and right in front of us. So we're looking right down on that rock as well as looking at the face of this shape here.
the more layers in the water to deepen the values here. Get a sense of deep. The more you stare into the ocean, you realize there's so many different colors in the water. It's not just one shade of blue or one value. It's just a mixture of all kinds of colors and shapes. The idea with this edge is carry your eye up through the composition this way. And then, you follow all these little nooks and crannies and details, and they kind of make you take a trip through the painting. And that's what I'm hoping for on some of these shapes here.
Dale, do you have any workshops coming up?
Yeah, keep forgetting to mention that I have I'm an invited artist to the Mendocino Fine Arts Paint Out, and the paint out itself is from the 24th to the 26th, and I'll be one of the artists painting there, plein air. And then prior to that, on the 21st and 22nd, I'll be doing a 2-day workshop there at Mendocino Arts Center, so that we could contact them about that. So that'll be coming up. And then next year I'll be doing the workshop in Santa Clara Valley Watercolor Society. I'll be doing that. And I'll be judging the National Watercolor Society show next year, one of the jurors on that. So yeah, I got a few things coming up. It's a slow process these days with our medical situation. We never know what's going to happen next, but we're giving it a shot, huh? Now I want to try it before my time is up. I want to show you how I use titanium white. It's a Daniel Smith color. I've used gesso in the past. I've used casein in the past. I've used, different methods of mixing using opaques. This one is titanium white. It's considered a transparent, semi-transparent white. So it doesn't cover great, but it can be used to create certain effects. So I might use it in this little hole in the rock here and create some patterns coming out of there. So I mix it with whatever color I need on my palette. In this case, I'm just basically using a pure white because the underpainting will show through anyway. So I just want to show the water coming through that there. And sometimes I use it to create negative spaces, maybe in my tree shapes, like here where I want the sky to come through, I'll paint what I call tree holes, just light holes in the tree. Just a way to bring in just a little bit of shine. I could use it to accentuate the surf line if I want, along through here. You can just let it blend in with the underpainting. Something like that. I don't know if that even shows up very well, but up here I might want to show some violet coming through, some lighter violet coming through from behind. So I'll mix up a little bit of cobalt blue and twin red for my violet. And I could show those spaces like that, so you can see where I've shown the light of the hillside coming through into the through the tree shapes, through these abstracted tree shapes. I think that really the only way to get your own signature way of painting is just to keep painting. And I think each artist starts to see things in their own way. And I think that's the benefit of painting with watercolor, is it's so pliable. You can work with it in many different ways, and it really shines. You can do super realistic paintings, you know, where you're painting reflections on a bumper of a car or crystal or whatever, or you can paint more with more freedom, like I paint, you know, with big brushes. So it really does have a good range of possibilities that you can do with watercolors. So and now that there's not quite so much heartache about using opaques, it's even better that you know, a lot of, if you look at the AWS show last year and the year before, there a lot of opaques being used in paintings, which I think is a good thing because it adds another bit to our arsenal of painting. Yeah, I think watercolor is a pretty good thing. I paint in oil, I paint in acrylics a little bit, but I always fall back to good old watercolor because that's what I do. So I'm going to switch this now to back to my face, if I can find it. There we go. So anyway, this is, you have some idea of how I approach a painting. Of course, this is only in an hour and a half, and I spend a little bit more time with the drawing and considering shapes and being a little more careful with shapes. But I think I'm finding that kind of happy medium between being abstract, totally abstract, and having some relationship to the outside world, which is what I look for. So it's just my way of letting you see what I see. So that's about the extent of it for me.
Well, Dale, thank you so much for the time you spent with us. I've just been sitting here enjoying it so much.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us, and we wish you the best in the next stage of your life post-COVID.
Yeah, let's hope there is a post-COVID. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
So we're back together, and it's time to turn it over to Alice Lynn to take a look at our painting of the month. So you there, Alice Lynn? Take it away.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My monitor disappeared, so okay.
Feel
And
free to
there it
unmute
goes.
yourselves and chat about the paintings as they come.
That's the fun part of this meeting. We all get to talk. Can you see the painting of the month now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go. This month I decided to feature another landmark that might be neat to go to see and do a plein air painting. This is the Mountain Quarries Railroad Bridge near Auburn. We call it No Hands Bridge because it used to not have railings. And this lady used to walk across, well, they used to ride their horses across it. She would walk across with no hands. That's why it's called. Okay. Dana Meanders, Black Phoebe. She
It's
put
really
this.
nice. I love bird paintings. That's very nice.
And Michael Crow's his Tahoe Sunset.
Very good. Very
Michael
good.
here? If you're here, speak up. Everybody unmute yourself, okay? So we can all,
Interesting.
unless you have something weird about. Yeah, it is. And it's probably a very small painting. I don't. And David.
David.
Are you here, David? David Peterson.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Where was this painted?
This one's a little different, David. You didn't do as much outlining of this one, did you?
Oh, it's there. It's a recent plein air painting.
Very nice. They're so good at that.
Sacramento River. Okay, and this is Jan Atwood Ramey's The Tinsmith.
That's great.
She did a great job.
Yeah, no kidding. It's great.
Yeah. Look at that hat. It's on his head. How hard that is.
Yeah.
It is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Wonderful expression.
Oh, yeah. Here's Ronnie Rector's Amsterdam Adventure. And it's done with rice paper
Oh,
on paper. She's
Yeah.
done this before.
the texture is great.
It is. I don't think I like that texture down there, and also that shadow coming off that bike. You just really know that that bike is standing there leaning against that fence.
Really.
Really good.
Yeah, she does a batik a lot of times. I don't know if she used that on this where she actually puts wax on and then wax off. Yeah. But yeah, the basket, wow, really cool. This is Del Lund's Desert Springtime
yeah.
Flowers.
Del Lundy, and this is kind of reminding me of time spent in the Anza Borrego Desert in the springtime. And this is from a photo, and then I did the painting in studio.
Nice. Was that you taking the hike, or is that
somebody else?
Well, it's just a young couple that were out for a walk. I took a number of pictures, and this was my favorite among the pictures I took.
Nice.
Hey, Lucinda Johnson, Early Morning Magic. Is Lucinda here? Oh, look at that sun.
Yeah, I got the light there.
Like that light coming down through the trees there.
Very simple.
Lucinda, are you here?
Oh, too bad. That's really nice.
It's beautiful.
It really is. I had a tough time deciding. Did you guys have a tough time deciding? Gosh.
Always. It's
Oh,
always
yeah.
always tough to choose one.
Yeah. Peter Rogers, The Race.
Oh.
All right.
Peter, are you here? No. No. Oh, too bad.
I'd like to do sailboats. That'd be fun.
Yeah. And Ralph, this is yours. You can pronounce it for us.
Nieuwe Kerk steeple. The new church is built in 1500s. The old church is in the 1400s. This is Delft, Holland.
That's beautiful, Ralph.
Very nice.
I see it as a sweet painting, Ralph. Clouds, very nicely. The composition with the clouds, great.
Joe Kopp's Puppy Love.
I love the eyes. Yes.
Look at that face.
That's great. Oh, I didn't see this one. Isn't that lovely? Look at those little dogs. Somebody's puppies, I guess.
Yeah, this is Galen Hasselhofer's song.
That was
Are you here?
pet portraits for a friend of mine. That's Mason and Ronnie. I think they both passed away, so it was a memorial.
Oh, I love the eyes in both the dogs. So you really captured that.
I Kevin, he's got his head tilted a little bit and just kind of look a little sad.
I love that.
Cute. What a sweet painting.
Oh, so cute.
Okay, and Sally Bosley, exploring you. Okay, you can pronounce this one too.
Oh, it's in Opaque. It's a village. It was deserted for a long time. And then a bunch of artists found it and started moving in. So it's kind of a little artist colony now, and tourists go wandering through looking for art.
Wow, a deserted village.
I like the blending of the colors on the buildings there.
Yeah, the shadows are beautiful.
That's really nice.
Really nice.
Sally, is that in Provence?
Yeah, close.
Close.
It used to be called Languedoc. It's now Aquitaine.
Okay.
Is Alex here?
He's
Alex
here.
Arud. Okay.
So
What,
cute.
what inspired this, Alex? This is great.
That's so cute.
Yeah, this was a photo from a friend who took her kid to a ball pit somewhere.
He's really immersed in it, isn't he?
It's very neat to see how the camera treats the it's a perspective too, and there's a lot going on. There's too many. I painted more balls in the pit than there were in the photo.
So cute.
We'll never tell.
Great idea.
Marlene Marchand, Glacier National Park. This is from her journal.
Oh, good.
She did this with Tombow markers.
Wow.
Marlene, are you here? No.
Nice black and whites. Not so easy
No, it really is hard.
to get the shadings and everything and not have it all kind of blend together.
And that's that for. Okay, we're ready to see who won.
Yeah.
Okay, first we have third place. That goes to Jan Atwood Ramey, the tinsmith.
All right.
It's a nice one.
Oh, yes. This is what the bridge looked like when it was used as a railroad bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Second place goes to Ralph. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
Very good.
Well deserved. And we have our first place painting. It goes to Ronnie Rector.
I love that one.
Yeah, wow.
I like that one. Woo!
Yay.
Yeah, that painting's a winner.
Really is. And that's it for this month. Thank you, everybody who put paintings in and who all voted. I mean, I have people all over the world voting for these. I'm in a group where everybody's like spread out all over the world, and I always send them here to vote.
Interesting. I didn't know that other people were voting on it like that.
Sure, yeah. And California Watercolor Society is now going to put that regularly in their newsletter so that they will get it every month and they'll be able to do that. We had a lot of people from there voting this time.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Alice Lynn,
You are welcome.
for doing that for us. And we're coming to a conclusion of our day. What a wonderful, wonderful workshop we had on the summer months that we weren't going to meet, but decided to anyway. So I'm glad you spent part of your summer here. Just a final reminder that I need your help. And I hope that if you have a digital camera that you can give, a tripod, a laptop bag, if you could be on a committee, that would be a big help. If you could help out with a nominating committee, we need 2 people. That's really important. Contact Tana, and it's kind of a short-term thing, but it's an important part of WASH. So thank you for being here. I wish you the best. God bless you, and stay out of the smoke.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.